and welcome to another episode of Talk with Antonio. I am your host, Antonio. First off, I want to say hello. I hope you all had a great 4th of July weekend. It was okay for me. In terms of work, it was not that great because not a lot of people were. I wasn't getting a lot of orders, so to speak, because I'm a delivery driver guy. So for this week's episode, I am continuing watching. But first, before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I want to apologize. I was supposed to record on the 4th of July weekend, but life comes into the way, and I couldn't record. And I just want to say I apologize to the people who do listen to it. Thank you all. And this is the continuation. I'm sorry, of Who Killed WCW. But this is part 2, episode 2 of the first season of Vice TV. So here we go.
By 1997, we had built so much goodwill with the audience. As a result of the NWO, we were absolutely on fire.
When it rains, it pours!
For 83 weeks straight, WCW Nitro defeated WWE. And then all of a sudden, boom. I get a phone call. It's Harvey Schiller.
He's the president of Turner Sports, and by proxy, you could say WCW.
So I answered it. Hey, Harvey, how you doing? I'm good. How are you? I said, I'm good. Before you hang up, I want to let you know, Nitro was having so much success on TNT. Ted wants to do another primetime show for TBS.
Feel the thunder. Only on the Superstation.
I hung.
Right now, Eric Bischoff was talking about how 1997 was a great year for WCW because of the NWO storyline. They wanted to produce another show called Thunder. Looking back then, Thunder was, I would say, too much work for Eric Bischoff, because imagine producing a show for Monday Nitro, you had to be constantly writing and doing all this stuff, especially on Monday, because they had to compete with WWF at that time, Monday Night Raw. And now Harvey Schiller, because of what Ted Turner said, they wanted to make another show for Thursday nights called Thunder. I was like, ooh, I can imagine Eric Bischoff was getting burnt out in terms of flooded with a lot more work and all that stuff, because at that time WCW had before Monday Nitro, they had WCW Saturday Night, and me and my brother and me, we used to watch when they had the NWO Saturday Night. That was pretty awesome, if you ask me. I loved it when it did that. I never missed an episode WCW Saturday Night, but they decided to go with Thunder, and I think you'll see Eric Bischoff's reaction.
Hung up the phone. I thought, this can't be real.
They weren't happy enough with the ratings they had. They wanted to expand,
That's Kevin Sullivan right there.
A weekend, the Monday show.
I mean, things were going so well. You're giving them such a great show on Monday night that the idea of doing another show live 48 hours after I just got done producing one, there was no way I thought it could work. But I didn't want to be the guy to tell Ted no. That was my mistake.
Lo and behold, that was absolutely true. You couldn't say no to Ted Turner, and Eric Bischoff admitted, he said that was a big mistake. This is 1998 right now.
TBS said, sure, we'll take the show. We just don't have it in our budget. We can't pay for it. So reluctantly, we just pay for it out of WCW's budget. That's what Ted wants. The challenge right off the bat, audience fatigue. Because now they're seeing too much of the same talent.
Who's who? I don't know.
Even though we had a very deep roster, if we're going to do another show, I thought, that roster has to be substantially unique. That's why I brought Bret Hart in.
And this right here, on the Bret Hart documentary that was produced by WWE, Eric Bischoff clearly said that they had a huge roster, but they needed more marquee talent, and that's when they brought in Bret Hart. And that's what I do believe. I look, I know Bret Hart's career in WCW was absolute fucking trash. You could hear it later on. They will show Bret Hart talking, and you could tell he's fucking bitter about that. Which I don't blame him. They could have, like, WCW could have done more with Bret, but like Vince McMahon said once upon a time to Bret, they have no idea what to do with a Bret Hart. And boy, those words are so fucking prophetic. And Eric Bischoff wanted to do more with Bret, but we all know what happened in Bret's career in WCW.
I was at the top of the heap of the WWF during those days. I beat Undertaker for the title. I beat Stone Cold Steve Austin. I was a WWF guy, and I think I was a big part of the success that it had.
He was absolutely right.
I like Bret. A lot of respect for that man.
Bret Hart, somebody I probably had my best matches with. Ultimate respect.
I loved Bret Hart. He was like a national hero in Canada. People respect him.
I believe that. That's Conan saying that.
I emulated some of my style from Bret Hart, like my suplex.
Right there. Bischoff says, what's it going to take for you to come to WCW?
Bret?
We got up to $2.8 million a year.
Bret?
So I joined WCW.
Bret the Hitman Hart has arrived!
First night I walked out and I got a great reaction.
But you can tell that Bret's face that he didn't want to be there. And I'm going to make a comment. I don't know if people will agree with me, but after this, I will like when I close the show, I will say something about Bret Hart in WCW.
Needed an anchor for that show. Bret was critical to that.
But it went downhill from there.
It sounds to me like you people are a little disappointed in me.
They're flying me down from Calgary, and then they tell me I'm off for the night. And then the next week I do the same thing again. Just sit in the dressing room and do nothing. Eric, he apologized to me many times and said, I'm so sorry about how we brought you in. Everything he ever said was a lie.
We already knew that we were running thin.
You had Monday Night Nitro, and then you had 2 days that you had to do house shows.
It's followed by a 2-hour Thunder.
We had a Saturday show.
And then you might have a pay-per-view or something in there.
You're basically booking 10 hours in 2 days. It was impossible to have any kind of attention to detail.
And I think it showed.
I've never seen a human being do anything like that.
And I can't even imagine being in the Eric Bischoff's shoes or being in his place or all these other people who were booking for WCW at that time. You were working for you were producing WCW Saturday Night, WCW Monday Nitro, Thunder, the house shows, plus a pay-per-view. Even Kevin Nash had 10 hours of booking a wrestling show. That's just that to me, it's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion, people. I'll bet all those people I'll bet dollars to donuts after WCW closed. The people who worked there, they were probably like, oh my God. I'm not saying that I'm happy that WCW closed. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the people who worked in terms of writing, booking, and everything, they would say, oh my God, now I can have a break and all that stuff. But that's for another time.
There's so many times we didn't have finishes for this or finishes for that because it was so time consuming.
Fans, we're out of time!
And these guys are trying to think up something new. They're going to go to something that worked before.
You know, NWO was still rocking and rolling, printing money and printing ratings. And as a result, we took the easy way out. We kept adding to the NWO. Let's create the red faction.
We got some new colors going on.
Let's create the Latino faction.
The Latino World Order.
You just can't pass T-shirts out and water down the greatest show in town.
You gotta wear that?
There were too many people. It wasn't cool anymore.
Okay, a lot of people, even the late Scott Hall said that a lot of fans commented him, and he said it on the NWO Back in Black DVD from WWE that came out in 2002. Scott Hall said that a lot of fans commented that when it was the NWO, it was just cool. It was just him. It was him, Kevin Nash, and Hulk Hogan. I would say I agree too. Even though I'm not a fan of Hulk Hogan for other reasons, not because of, well, that's another thing I want to talk about some other time, but I've never been a fan of him. But I'll give him credit though. Hogan put wrestling on the map, and it is what it is today. And he also helped make like the NWO like super cool. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just awesome when it was just those three. But what's his name? Scott Hall said something that, to a degree, was like, "Do you like WCW or NWO?" Instead of saying, "Do you like WCW or WWF?" He was making those two comparisons. But even Conan said that they were adding more people to the group. It was not cool anymore. But Hogan said in the same DVD, Back in Black, that when they added friends or other members, it seemed to weaken it. But Hogan said this, and this is something that I do agree with him. He said that the NWO was so strong, you take an ordinary wrestler, put the NWO colors on that ordinary wrestler, and he became a star overnight. And that's something that I do believe. I firmly believe, because the NWO was fucking strong at that time. But it was becoming watered down. In 1998, I don't think the NWO was that strong around 1998. I mean, probably like still 97, yes, but 98 was rolling around. It was just another different story. That's where something else is going to come right now, and I will talk about this guy.
If you watch one match, you watch them all. Every show ends with a run-in. There's about 20 guys running in there. And I'm going, why am I running in? Nothing made sense from one week to the next.
And the fans disgusted, thumbs down. Unbelievable.
Creating momentum is really, really hard. The only thing harder than creating momentum is maintaining momentum.
Thanks for having me here, Mr. President-elect.
What the fuck?
We lost our momentum, and we find ourselves in a rebuild mode.
Okay. I don't agree with that. They still had momentum. WCW was still now they were getting like a little bit neck and neck with the WWF at that time. But right now, that's where Eric Bischoff is going to start talking about another guy that WCW created. And here we go.
April 13th of 1998.
Now they're going to talk about the WWF now.
Something significant happened, which was Raw beating Nitro for the first time in the ratings for 22 months.
Whenever you're leading a night and now you're not leading a night, there's reason for concern.
They were talking, and that's when Stone Cold Steve Austin was the WWF champion at that time, following the night of WrestleMania 14.
As WCW and Monday Nitro became a huge primetime hit, those numbers exploded because it wasn't just men 18 and 34. It now became families. So my eye was on Goldberg.
Yep, and there we go. They created one of the biggest stars at that time, Bill Goldberg. And I don't have, like, WWE brought him in later on, but I will say something about this guy. But first, let's hear from this guy right here.
I was born with something. I'm fucking 6'3", 280 pounds. I could go from 0 to 100 and 100 to 0 in 60 seconds.
When you were younger, dude. Now you're just another old man. You know, I'm just gonna say what it is. Goldberg right here sounded so fucking arrogant right here. I mean, he said all this stuff. I would believe it when he was much younger, but now he couldn't even spear right. You know.
But what the business didn't have was something that I wanted to fill the void with. And that's the beauty of the character that we came up with. I am the fucking character. I am Goldberg.
Bill Goldberg, a former football player who became the biggest star at that time in WCW. I remember his first fight was against Hugh Morris. He just beat him in a few minutes or so, and he was just pushed right to the top, like from the like in a very like fast fashion.
I don't think there ever had been an athlete,
The man,
star,
Superman himself,
performer
100%
in
adrenaline.
professional wrestling that rose as quickly as Goldberg. Bill Goldberg, he was on a rocket ship from day one.
A professional wrestler was never anything I aspired to be. My entire life existence was to play football.
I don't know if you know who this guy is, but I've got the picture. I know all about him. Bill Goldberg, former Georgia Bulldog and Atlanta Falcon.
I was never the best football player by any stretch of the imagination. I got hurt, tore my abdomen off of my pelvis in '94. I had no idea what I was going to do the rest of my life. I was depressed as shit. When I finally seriously considered becoming a professional wrestler, I had to come up with something where I felt as though I was continually building upon what I had built. You strive to be the biggest, baddest dude on the field.
I gave him the short.
All right, in that aspect, when he said he became depressed, I do feel him. I don't blame him, because imagine you're doing something you like, but then all of a sudden you get hurt. It kind of reminds me of what happened to The Rock when he was in the Canadian Football League and he got hurt. And he came back to the United States with just $7 in his pocket. And that's when he said he asked his dad to train him to be a professional wrestler, and the rest is history. But like the way he says that he never aspired to be a pro wrestler, I don't know. That really comes off to me as just I compare him to, look, I have nothing against I will say this, people. I have talked bad about Brock Lesnar in the past. He's just in it for the money. But, in terms of that, I mean, who isn't? He's just in it for everyone's in it for the money. But people who want to do it are in it for the money. Plus, they have a passion for it. But Bill Goldberg, you can tell that he was never really passionate about anything. He was just fucking green when he was wrestling. And the one that, I don't know if they're going to talk about this later on here, but if they don't, I will talk about it. When he fought against, at that time, he was known as Steven Regal, better known as William Regal in the WWF, WWE. But he was known as Steve Regal in WCW. And he humiliated Goldberg in Monday Nitro. He took him to school, basically. But, yeah, and you can see like right now they just push him all the way to the top in WCW.
Black boots, black tights.
Combination slam, 1, 2, 3.
He didn't talk.
You absolutely manhandled him tonight. Sir, I've got to get a little bit more than that.
Mike Tyson, black boots, black shorts. Didn't need to talk. Just come down and do that.
He might bite your fucking ear off, or he might knock you out with an uppercut. You don't know what's going to happen.
Hey, you got to watch this guy, Goldberg. He's a time bomb just ready to explode.
Maybe that's why it worked.
The crowd was reacting to him like a superstar.
Listen to this reception.
It was like, holy crap.
1, 2, 3.
People were chanting his name, Goldberg, Goldberg.
They pushed him like crazy.
There's never been a push anything like it anywhere. Let's just put him out there and have him squash people. Kept doing it, doing it, doing it. People kept loving it, loving it, loving it. Why would you mess with that?
There were a lot of people jealous of him.
And Kevin Sullivan said that a lot of people were jealous. And that's something that I do agree. And Kevin Nash was one of them. He killed the momentum of Goldberg. Like everyone, in the wrestling business, Scott Hall said it once upon a time, it's a cutthroat business. Everyone wants to be on top. Everyone is stabbing each other in the back in the locker room because they want to aspire, they want to be all the way to the top. And that's something that I like. I'm not saying I condone, but I don't know. It just sounds it's fucking shady, basically. And I would say that Bill Goldberg, like I said, he was pushed all the way to the top. But a lot of people, even fans, they interview. I remember watching on TV, they did a show about how they compare Bill Goldberg to Stone Cold Steve Austin, another former WCW wrestler who became the biggest wrestling star of all time in the history of wrestling. And Stone Cold. And people were saying that Bill Goldberg was a Stone Cold wannabe. I'll never forget that. And yeah, because he was bald, he had black trunks and black boots. Same thing with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And fucking Kevin Sullivan was comparing him to Mike Tyson. No. Bill Goldberg may be a big guy and all, but Mike Tyson's a different story, Kevin. So stop going no. And right now, when they were saying a lot of people were jealous, they show how Bill Goldberg is spearing Kevin Nash.
Bill was a fan. Bill was a mark. Bill was a football player.
Okay. Look, and Kevin Nash to me comes off as a bitter, jealous old man. Because right now, of course he's going to trash Goldberg because he calls him a mark or anything like that. Like I said, I'm not a fan of Goldberg. I have spoken to him. I have been negative about him, but now I love watching him as Diesel. I love watching him as Kevin Nash in WCW, in Diesel in WWF, and Kevin Nash in WCW. But I don't know. Now he even has heat with CM Punk. And I don't know. To me, Kevin Nash comes off to me as a fucking bitter old man. Of course he's going to squash Goldberg's momentum because he was jealous of him. Why would you do that? Knowing that Bill Goldberg was part of WCW success, and this guy just wanted to kill it because he was the booker. But there's more to it right now. Here goes.
Someone should have taught him or pulled him aside and said, "Hey, Bill, you do know that this is pretend, right?"
That's Bret Hart.
He didn't.
This is a fucking television show. I know when you tackle somebody, you think it's real. But the person getting fucking potatoed in the corner's had enough.
I feel bad about it. But as long as the intent is not there, it's not my fault. You can't blame me.
Jesus Christ, dude. Get some skills.
A lot of jealousy. This guy hasn't paid his dues, and Goldberg doesn't love this like we do.
They can all kiss my ass.
Okay. Conan said that. A lot of people, when they aspire, they want to be something, and doesn't matter being in the doctor, in baseball, wrestling, etc., whatever. People work hard. They start at the bottom, and if you want to get to the top, you have to work hard. And Conan said that, and that's something I do agree. You know how I compared? I know this is going to be a horrible comparison. I know I'll probably get heat with this. Bill Goldberg to me is kind of like Logan Paul, who was a boxer, who's now a wrestler in WWE, and this fucker never even went to school, and he didn't do anything. He never, to me, Logan Paul never paid his dues, but yeah, he's in the main event spots. He's been all in main event stuff, and that's something that I kind of do have a problem with. A lot of people who are trained to become wrestlers, they want to go to the WWE, they want to, or AEW, or New Japan, or TNA. They want to be a champion, they want to be the main eventer, but they have to work very hard to get to the top. And Logan Paul, that's how I compare Bill Goldberg to Logan Paul. They never pay their dues, And Bill Goldberg, to me, was never trained properly. He hurt a lot of people. And I saw there's a video that was circling around Twitter where he picked off Meng or Haku, and he just dropped him on his neck that looked like it fucking hurt. And he also dropped Jimmy Hart on the neck, and that looked like you could tell that Jimmy Hart was in serious pain. And Bill Goldberg just did not give a fuck. You can even hear he said they all can kiss his ass. So, but at least the thing with at least Logan Paul knows. He kind of knows in terms of knows what he's doing. But in my opinion, Bill Goldberg and Logan Paul did not pay their dues to aspire to the top in wrestling. And right now, Logan Paul's the United States champion. I don't know. That I kind of have my opinions on that, but that will be for some other episode. So
I'll take that criticism on the way up because I'm still that guy. And you guys tried every frickin' thing you could do for me not to be that guy. And who prevailed?
A little bit arrogant right there. He was at the Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
Goldberg was really the phenomena that could bring advertisers and all the other stuff that they're buying or they're consuming.
Nash and Goldberg, Fashion Brawlers.
The kids loved Goldberg. They loved that character. And they loved the fact that he was undefeated. All anyone ever wanted to talk about was Goldberg, Goldberg, Goldberg.
So I'm in LA one day, and I get a phone call from Hulk. I got an idea. I'm going to wrestle Goldberg, Georgia Dome. We're going to put him over clean. The time is right. This is the time. Let's do this.
Nitro, it's on the air!
I was watching that.
Professional wrestling capital of the world, Atlanta, Georgia.
Bill Goldberg was a hometown hero.
There he is, and here comes the eruption. Bigger than before.
Guys from the Falcons were there, former teammates. It felt like the Super Bowl.
But why would you do that type of a 5-star match on regular prime time? I think they should have saved that for a pay-per-view. They could have done it either at let me see what pay-per-views. Let's see if I remember correctly. They could have done it either at Super Brawl or even the main one, Starrcade. They could have done that, but they did it on primetime, and I think that was a mistake. They could have, if they would have done that on pay-per-view, they could have made a lot of money for that. But look, it is what it is.
I mean, we sold out the Georgia Dome.
44,000 tickets, man. That place was packed. It was electric.
It was Nitro.
This is the biggest one, that heightened sense of anticipation. Let the match begin.
10 million people in the United States between Monday Night Raw and Nitro were zeroed in on professional wrestling. Mind-blowing.
I believe it.
Really was.
He's got him up.
The height of WCW.
That was the coolest shit ever. The feeling that I got when I heard the crowd after I received the belt.
Thank you. We got a new heavyweight champion.
Nothing like it. It was just the coolest moment.
Okay, why is this not on a pay-per-view?
Exactly.
It's like, man, we could have made a lot more money.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
TV for a while.
One of the things that I was criticized for was that I was putting pay-per-view quality matches on free TV.
WCW is getting higher ratings than anything else in the company. This is the hottest product we've got.
It didn't always advertise into the highest value that you could get for ad dollars.
The disconnect between the advertising dollars and the size of the audience for wrestling became an issue.
One of the forces working against ad revenue was our ad people wouldn't sell wrestling. They don't like it and they want to get rid of it. There's such pressure on Eric with opposition, not only at corporate, but also the people that reported to him. I mean, he had no friends.
We're going to take your paycheck. We're going to take your job.
There was always a hint of ulterior motive, which at the end of the day could maybe mean the destruction of your company. I don't know.
But it is absolutely true. They still did not, even though WCW was making record sales, and it was WCW at that time in the mid-90s was the hottest product. But yet still people at Turner did not want wrestling. You heard it right there, people. I don't know what was up with those suits and ties over there that did not want wrestling. They just want to get rid of it. I think they were like the people, the stupidest idiots that were like in charge of Turner. Even though Turner was the owner, but in every company there's always board of directors and such, and that's something that I've always been against. It's just fucking stupid, And I don't know. They just kept saying it. I do believe that the writing was on the wall after Starrcade of 1997 with that the match between Hogan and Sting, and we all know, well, that was a big clusterfuck. That to me was the biggest clusterfuck in the history of clusterfucks. You know?
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. His debut.
This is 1996. They showed WWF Rocky Maivia.
In the world of professional wrestling, any kind of fresh take on something is challenging to do. Back then, I was still opening match.
The Rock right there. Rocky
Before the show
Maivia.
ended, I was already back in my hotel room watching Nitro. I just wanted to see where they were doing things differently and figure out how we could do something like that, or possibly even better.
Raw's War.
When you're getting your ass kicked week over week over week, which was our company, you're going to say, hey, fuck this. What do we need to do?
Welcome to the Attitude Era.
WWE's answer to NWO was the Attitude Era.
Exactly. Oh my God. You know, a lot of people, especially in this generation of wrestling fans, they all say that the Attitude Era is overrated. No. It's because you didn't live through that era. People like I'm 40 years old. I was 14 when the Attitude Era was started, and it peaked like around late 98, 99. Those years of the WWF was fucking awesome. And I remember, like, you know how they show Billy Gunn saying, we got 2 words for you, suck it. People, I remember classmates, including myself, I used to say, like that DX, they show the hand gesture to the crotch and say, suck it. We used to get in so much trouble, especially with teachers they used to hand us detention just for doing that gesture. And like that was, you know how NWO had the gesture with the fingers? And WWF's answer with the Attitude Era was the suck it with the gesture to the crotch. And that, I love that. That was the Attitude Era, was the best era in the history of professional wrestling. And I don't care what people say that is overrated. It's because they didn't live through it. You know what I'm saying? And that was WWE's answer to WCW's NWO storyline. And Bill Goldberg, obviously. Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay, first of all, I refer to it as the Nitro Era because the Attitude Era was nothing more than a replication of the Nitro format.
No. You are absolutely wrong there, Eric Bischoff. You were absolutely wrong there, dude. No. WWF made it more exciting, you know. They had other stars especially when you fired Stone Cold Steve Austin in 1995 because you think that he was just a mid-card player. Man, look what he did. Stone Cold Steve Austin proved, or Steve Williams proved you wrong, Eric. No. That's something that I do not agree with. WWF was on its own. They created their own thing. It was a Nitro replica. Bullshit. Fuck that.
They were going after the same audience that I recognize as being underserved.
No. Bullshit.
Okay. We're in a fight. We've been dominating that fight. But this guy's coming back. It wasn't like we were hurting. They were just getting stronger. I mean, 98 was a record revenue year. But all of a sudden, none of that mattered anymore. And that affected WCW in ways that I didn't anticipate. I was introduced to a...
And right now they're talking about how back then the internet fans, the smart marks or whatever, the smarks. This one right here said this: what a great Raw ending. Bischoff. That's fucking funny. Oh my God. Bischoff has seen Nitro get his ass kicked in the ratings by Raw. It may be time for Time Warner Turner to realize that old Eric just sucks at his job. Okay. That's something that I do not agree with. I just think that Eric Bischoff was just way too fucking cocky. I mean, I don't like Eric. I have my opinions on Eric Bischoff. I mean, I will give him credit. He was the one who really took it to Vince McMahon and kicked his ass for 83 weeks straight. But like people say that old Eric sucks at his job. No, I would not go that far. I just don't agree with his what he said about that the Attitude Era was copying the Nitro format. No, I would say, and I hate that now I'm going to say that WWF's Attitude Era was inspired by ECW style.
Different kind of corporate structure with regard to WCW. In July of 1998, I was sitting in a meeting with 10 or 12 other people, it's much higher on the food chain than I am, telling me how I was going to operate WCW and change our target demographic that we had built an entire business upon. He said, no, we want kids and families.
They wanted to make it to a more family-friendly product. And I think that was actually the downfall of WCW, because these fucking corporate heads know nothing, but they just know how to run a business. But in terms of wrestling, no, nothing. They don't know jack shit. And we're telling this guy how to run WCW. I think that was actually a catalyst. I think that was a point of why WCW died.
What you really need for success is the people who are coming in on the outside.
But there was a discussion about, could they do it without being as lewd as WWE?
They show right now how Sable took off her shirt and they just had finger paint on, like hand paint on her tits or boobs. I'm sorry if I said that. And fucking Jerry Lawler was like freaking out, like puppies, all that stuff. And I mean, I will say this now that I'm older, the Attitude Era was pretty lewd. It was crude. But at that time, kids loved that shit. That's what made WWF super popular at that time.
Vince McMahon and the WWE decided, let's do what Eric's doing, and let's do it better than them.
Oh my God, he's on fire!
That's exactly what they did.
What a good day for him. Ted Turner was very strict about things on the show that couldn't be done. Vince was quite happy to do all of that.
We will have less references to our enormous genitalia.
They took it into the gutter.
Doesn't matter. It worked.
They have Jenna Jameson on their show. Our rebuttal is, we'll give the guy an NWO shirt.
I guess there's a new member now, huh?
Everything we can possibly do to combat WWF, they're taking away from us.
Shut up, you idiot!
We were being mandated to change the nature of the way we were producing our show. To go back to doing what we were doing when we couldn't even be a distant number two. I had taken the business out of the dumpster and turned it into a success story. Now all of a sudden, Standards and Practices is about to tell me what I can and can't do. Forget that. If push comes to shove, I'm just going to fight all this until it gets to Ted's desk. And then it's going to be me and this guy, and we'll see who wins.
Like a wrestling match. You heard the man himself, Ted Turner.
When you're winning and you're the guy, it's a lot of fun. And when you're losing, not so much fun. And it was hard on him at times, man. You could see it.
Eric was always a really positive person, really positive. And all of a sudden it shifted to negative.
Don't show anything unless we tell you to show it.
All right, this is something that I kind of made me think right now, people. I mean, Eric Bischoff made the company like from being a distant, like a low budgeted, low produced wrestling show. That's at that time the second biggest company. Wasn't even nothing to the WWF, but when it became serious competition, it was a different story. But now these corporate heads were telling Eric how to run a wrestling show, and he was fighting tooth and nail. And you heard it right there, people. And now, like, they were telling him how to run a wrestling show to make it go back to how it all started back in the low budget, poorly produced days. Eric was not happy about that. So,
found myself fighting with departments of Turner Broadcasting that I'd never heard of before. It took a lot out of me. One afternoon, I was in my office and I was just out of gas. And Kevin came into my office,
and he just.
That's when Kevin Nash became the booker.
Such a hard time banging heads with everybody on everything.
And Kevin offered. He said, "Boss, why don't you just let me take over the book? Temporary, get your feet back underneath you. Let me take this pressure off of you."
The head booker was the one determining whether the concepts for each week's show actually made air or not. I think it's been fairly well acknowledged that Kevin Nash, had been instrumental in being a huge part of the creative process.
There were other people I could have handed it off to, but I had confidence in Kevin's instincts.
So that's how it started. I said, I'll help you. I should have said, let's go to a strip club.
There's a big difference between being part of a group that throws ideas out and being the guy that says, yeah, I know you don't want to do this, but this is what you're going to do, especially if you yourself are a talent. It was a bad situation, but it was the best case scenario.
It's quite simple. If you don't run with the pack, you're hunted by it.
Once you have the monkeys running the zoo, you're in trouble. And that's exactly what was happening.
That was actually, I would say, the beginning of the end.
Guys that didn't have the best interest of the company in mind. I don't think that's debatable.
It's not just about being the biggest, strongest. It's about whose ass they kiss.
Sooner or later, someone will beat Goldberg.
I never had any problem with Bill. I was happy that he was getting pushed.
I beg to differ.
But he's had the belt too long.
He was still really green and had no idea what he was doing. Not only did he keep hurting all the wrestlers that he works with, but he keeps hurting himself.
I'm wrestling Scott Hall, and I screw a spot up. And he's laying on the ground, and he looks up at me, and he goes, yo, man, what are you doing?
Yeah, you can tell he was upset, Scott Hall.
My reaction was, I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
Exactly. They pushed Goldberg all the way to the top with him not knowing anything about wrestling. He was just put I would say that Bill Goldberg was just he was just lucky. Bill Goldberg was just extremely lucky. He should count as lucky stars that he became a huge name in WCW at that time. That's all I got to say about that.
You're live on television, you're in front of your fans. I was scared shitless when I screwed that up because I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what to do.
If you can't do that, you can't be the fucking top guy.
Showing us a little new twist to his repertoire.
That's when I really realized there was a lot of shit going on and it wasn't all for face value. So that's when I started really smartening up to it.
This document will represent the meeting of these two men at Starrcade.
And this man...
That was the biggest match of Starrcade in 1998.
Yeah, I learned the good, bad, and the evil very quickly. I was jumping into shark-infested waters, to say the least.
Common fact, Wrestling 101, babyface always draws more money chasing the belt than having the belt.
Still undefeated here at WCW, the Sultan of Slams, Goldberg.
It was a padded stat.
Who cares? We gave the people what they wanted.
We've got to take him in a different direction in order for him to grow.
I never got tired of watching Mike Tyson come out and annihilate people. So with the Ray Creative, there's ways to keep things going.
That's what you do. You chase with the baby face. And when he fucking gets it, you take it right fucking back.
And that pay-per-view, Starrcade 1998, I watched that pay-per-view. And the main event was Bill Goldberg versus Kevin Nash for the WCW World Heavyweight title. And fans were divided. People were cheering for Kevin, and people were cheering for Goldberg. It was like the biggest match of all time. And a lot of people say that was also the beginning of the end of WCW because Kevin Nash ended the streak of Bill Goldberg. The streak was over, and because of Kevin Nash's jealousy. To me, right now, I've mentioned earlier in the episode that Kevin Nash I would consider him now a bitter old man because now he has heat with CM Punk because I don't know, I think it was back in 2011 that CM Punk and Kevin Nash had a program together in I think it was in Raw, I believe. I don't remember the exact date, but it was in 2011, and what's his name? CM Punk said that Kevin Nash referred to the late Eddie Guerrero as a vanilla midget, and that's when CM Punk said, "What do you know about main event talent? It's 2011. This is not 1994." And I believe he called CM Punk a short order Waffle House worker who was, I forgot what he said exactly. And then Kevin Nash, I guess he took it hard when CM Punk said about how he took out his phone and he texted his sister Shalene. He says, "OMG, Kevin Nash, WTF, thought he was dead, LOL." And I do believe that Kevin Nash took those things to heart. Because, I consider Kevin Nash a bitter old man. He's just jealous. He was jealous about Goldberg, and he's just jealous. I would say he's jealous of CM Punk, and I've heard his podcast. He's just always trashing CM Punk all the time. I don't know. That's just my view on Kevin Nash.
Because that's where the money is.
Kevin was a politician. There's nobody I've ever met that is a top talent that is not a politician.
You forgot to mention Hulk Hogan, the biggest politician of all time, because he always got his fucking way. Look what he did in Starrcade 1997. Ruined the fucking main event.
Job prerequisite. Just look at it on the surface. From a pure physicality point of view. The way we had built Bill Goldberg up to be this indestructible man-eating monster, who on that roster looked like they could possibly beat that monster?
Goldberg's a move away from continuing the streak.
And Kevin Nash standing at nearly 7 foot, 6'10", whatever he is, probably at that time 340, 350 pounds. It was believable. What I needed was somebody who could tell a story with a finish.
The finish I wanted was beat him 1, 2, 3, like the same way he was winning.
Took Nash off of his feet.
Clean. But they thought that he needed something more to lose.
Scott Hall tased him.
No, that was a mistake.
You watch that match back. When I powerbomb him.
Oh, no. Wait a minute.
I'm over as fuck.
Could this be it? 1, 2, 3. The streak is over. And we have a new world champion. The streak is over.
Did I like it? Fuck no. Did I question it? Yeah, everybody questioned it. But I don't control that shit. I go out and I do my job.
I think it was quite clear that there was no real plan in terms of where does the Goldberg character go from here. And so the follow-up left a bad taste in people's mouths.
I'm going to try tonight to right the wrongs that happened at Starrcade. Me and you, Goldberg, in Atlanta for the belt.
You have to imagine being in the audience on that night. It's January. There's an incredible atmosphere. But at the same time, a taped edition of Raw was happening on the other station. There was going to be a title change on that show.
A surprise right here tonight on Raw, plus the first Nitro of 1999. It's The Rock, Mankind, the championship. Ladies and gentlemen, we set the stage for the biggest rematch in professional wrestling history.
WCW had to remind viewers that this is where the real action is.
Now they're talking about 1999. That is something that I will remember, that fucking Eric Bischoff still used that dirty trick, if you ask me. You know how at that time Raw was pre-taped and Monday Nitro was live, and I think they're going to talk about it right here. I think it was, I forgot what was the main event for Nitro, but the main event for Raw, it was supposed to be Mankind versus The Rock for the WWF title, and everyone knew that he was going to win. And these were Tony I don't know if they're going to talk about, I will say this, these were Tony Schiavone's exact words, and I quote, We understand that Mick Foley, who wrestled here one time as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title. Huh. That'll put some butts in the seats. But I do remember that I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of magazines that at least 500,000 people changed their channels from Nitro to Raw to watch the title change. And then they switched back to Raw after the title change. And they were saying that was another thing that was the beginning of, that was also another catalyst for what WCW become in the later years. Oh, man, because it's just fucking mind-blowing, people.
Say, fuck this, I'll fight Goldberg again.
But that ends up taking a rather bizarre turn and devolving into a situation in which Hollywood Hogan comes back into the mix.
Oh, this is something. I think that a lot of people say that's another reason why WCW died, because of the finger poke of doom. They're going to talk about this.
And challenges Nash to a match.
After tonight, when I beat Kevin Nash, when I retire with the World Heavyweight title, you can just call me Hollywood, the Big Bad Wolf.
We were creating this illusion of a conflict between Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash. And we built it up like it was going to be the match of ages in the NWO to determine the fate of the organization. Hogan got to the ring and
it was just typical of fucking Hulk Hogan.
Looked all serious. Kevin Nash came to the ring. He looked like he wanted to eat Hulk Hogan for lunch. And they get close together. They're almost chest to chest, nose to nose. And then...
What's that about? What's going on here?
The biggest travesty of all time.
It looked like a finish. But it was contrived by the NWO, right? To keep the belt in the family. That's ultimately what it was all about.
And when that happened, me and a lot of wrestlers were like, what the fuck is this?
Exactly. Fuck Hogan. And then now that it's showing the shit about the internet, it says fuck Hogan. I have completely lost faith in Nitro and WCW entirely. This was on January 4th, 1999. The finger poke of doom was the absolute biggest. I think they robbed the fans there of a good main event. Why would, I don't know. It's just typical Hogan fashion. You know? It's just, ugh.
Fans around the world are saying that's exactly when WCW started to go downhill. And it's dirt sheet material.
You know why people hate that so much? Because it got them. Look at the crowd.
It was fucking garbage. I was 15 years old at that time, and I watched this shit. I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? You know?
They don't know what the fuck they've seen.
People expected to see something, and they felt like they got fucked.
They got robbed, actually.
WCW had chronic bad finish disease. Sometimes just a good, clean finish is the best thing. That same night, Mick Foley was going to be wrestling The Rock.
But yeah, that's where I got there. 500,000 people changed the channel to watch the title change of Mankind versus The Rock. And after the title change happened, they went back to Nitro and they saw that fucking travesty, like another big clusterfuck.
As I often had with Nitro and became famous for, giving away their finishes, starting my show 2 minutes before they started their show. I thought, why not go back to the well and give them a reason not to watch Rock and Mick?
Big mistake, Eric.
Mick Foley, who wrestled here one time as Cactus.
And Mick.
We understand that Mick Foley, who wrestled here one time as Cactus Jack, is going to win their world title.
That fucking Eric Bischoff, he just spoiled the match. He took a shot.
Yeah, but that caused a lot of people from switch their channels to watch the title change. And in reality, it benefited the WWF at that time. It helped catapult Mick Foley to the big star that he always was meant to be, but he wasn't booked as a major star in WCW. I mean, he was a star in ECW. I don't know, like I said, I can't really speak about that because I couldn't watch ECW at that time. But from what I read, that WCW did not know how to book him. He was treated like a less than there. And who was the fucking booker there? None other than fucking Ric Flair. And when Mick Foley went to the WWF and became Mankind, the rest is history. He was a star that he was supposed to be.
A big chunk of WCW Nitro's audience went, really? That's going on over there? I'm going too. And they left. So it backfired in a huge way. 2 big moves in one night. Finger poke of doom and crap it all over Rock and Mick. Neither one of them worked very well.
We got a little lucky that night. We had a great match, me and Mick. That was a real defining moment.
This feels pretty damn good.
There was a lot of mistakes, but my check didn't change.
Of course.
The infighting, the jealousy, who is Eric going to listen to, all that started to disintegrate something that was so cool and hot. We were our own worst enemies. It was bad enough the Turner executives didn't want us. We did ourselves no favors.
That's something. Look, I kind of don't agree with that, because I do believe that WWF they actually kicked the WCW's ass at that time because of a lot of you heard Conan say this right now.
Now, a discussion about cable television programming.
Can I go to wrestling for a second? Does it bother you a little bit that wrestling is so popular? I didn't know that was the promise of cable.
4 years ago, I went to a wrestling event, and as you were going on the highway, you were basically seeing people in pickup trucks, going. A month ago, I went to a WCW Monday Nitro event. There were 40,000 people, sold out in 1 hour, and all I'm seeing are families going. So we're not embarrassed by it at all.
That's what you said at that time. Before you said that, Brad Siegel, you didn't want nothing to do with wrestling. So fucking quit lying, bitch.
When you're a single organization, you do one thing, which is professional wrestling. It's very different than when you're a company like Time Warner and you've got a lot of businesses that have to get sorted out.
You're going to have people who kind of look at this and go, is this classy enough for our networks? How is that going to rub off?
And right now, they were showing I do remember watching an interview that Scott Hall did. I think it was for RF Video, when they asked him about the drunk angle that WCW was doing with Scott Hall, which I think it was poor in taste, if you ask me. Why would you want to exploit someone's big personal problems and exploit them on TV? That's something, now that I'm older, I'd say that's something you don't have to do that. I don't think that's people's private problems, very personal problems. And they were showing right here how Scott Hall was I think he was hungover or drunk, and he just puked all over Eric, and he's like, ugh. But still, though, that's still fucked up,
On our brand.
Well, wrestling may be a good product for some, but we are, after all, the world's leader in news and entertainment, and that was the rationale. We just don't like it.
The fact that WCW became successful was really frustrating for a lot of people. It was not part of the plan. It never was part of the plan. The average person would go, well, why would anybody care? And I'll tell you why. Because WCW occupied prime-time beachfront property on TNT. There were a lot of people that wanted that prime-time real estate and were frustrated at our success because we got it.
There were so many demands from different places and a lot of answering to shareholders that have expectations. And WCW got caught up in that.
Well, the revenue challenges were simple. One of the goals of Turner Broadcasting was to enhance the bottom line of various divisions that they wanted to hold on to. Let's take some of their debt and move it over here. So they reallocated the guts out of my budget so that money could be moved over to other divisions. It made their bottom line look that much better.
We'll recognize all those earnings at TBS.
And because they do business with WCW, we're going to move some of those losses over here. So WCW's books look a little worse because we want it to go away anyway.
You could have probably made it profitable if WCW charged a boatload of money for carrying wrestling to TNT and to TBS. But because we wanted TNT and TBS to be much more profitable, the license fee we paid was very low. And that was, not my decision.
They didn't care if they had to sacrifice WCW. That's kind of what they wanted to do all along anyway. There were people deconstructing WCW from a budgetary perspective right underneath everybody else's noses.
In my opinion, I think those higher-ups at Turner, CNN, whatever, they were just a bunch of fucking idiots. How can they want to get rid of something that was making them money? That's something I'll never, now that I'm older, I will never understand that WCW, they just want to they really, really wanted to do just fucking gut WCW. And that was something that's making them more money. It's fucking idiots. Typical corporate suits that doesn't know jack shit about it. All they care about is just this thing's not making, let's get rid of it. Idiots.
The reason we became so successful is what, in retrospect, looked like bad deals. The no-cut contracts, creative controls, and all those things were necessary to swing the immediate tide over.
I guess you'd like me to sign that, wouldn't you, huh?
Everybody was making 7 figures plus.
You see this?
People know how much this guy's getting, and they want to know why they're not getting as much.
Just drew their money and did nothing.
Oh, you work here? Oh, you've been collecting money for a year sitting on your ass.
And I've actually heard about that. What's his name? Honky Tonk Man did an interview. I believe it was for Hannibal. I don't know if he talked about how he worked for WCW for just a cup of coffee, even though Eric Bischoff was not a fan of him. And one time, he at the WCW office in Atlanta, he saw, I think it was Brad Armstrong, and he says that I don't want no one to see me, but I want to see if my contract, if I'm on the name there on the list, so my contract will be renewed. And they were just, this is something that now that I'm older and I realize what the fuck. And Honky Tonk said they deserve to get raped. That company deserved to get raped because they were just splurging money all over, and people were getting paid even by staying home. And I remember hearing about before when WCW went out of business, I remember hearing about that major stars like Kevin Nash, Bill Goldberg, Sting. Sting had in WCW at that time, they had what they call Sting money, which was $750,000 a year, which in my opinion, that's a lot of fucking money. And but these other stars like Lex Luger, Booker T, Buff Bagwell, before when they were bought out by WWF in 2001, these stars that I mentioned were they were not signed directly with WCW. They were signed with AOL Time Warner. And some people and some wrestlers could have either just before the invasion started, when they were bought out, they could have WWF if they had enough money, they could have bought those contracts and they could have made their own invasion, because everyone remembers the WWF invasion that happened. I think that could have been one of the greatest wrestling storylines of all time, but it just fizzled out in 2001 because Sting one time said this. Let me see if I could put it up. Give me 1 second, people. Let me see. It's let me see. Sting. Let me see. Give me 1 second, people. Okay, this is on the TNA DVD that Sting did back in 2005. This is where it goes like this. Sting explains why he didn't go to the WWE. And this is so fucking true. I talked about his in my old podcast, and I will revisit that episode later on in the future. And listen to this, people.
Put it this way, all the guys...
The video goes, Sting's explanation not joining the WWE.
I talked with Vince McMahon. He was really good to me. He was really good to me, and but I just got this feeling that he didn't. You know, I put it this way: all the guys from WCW that went to WWE when the acquisition happened. By then, to me, there wasn't a real WCW because, you know, WCW was, for so many years, it was, you know, Hall and Nash, it was Hogan, it was Savage, it was Sting, it was Luger, it was the Steiner Brothers, it was, you know, a certain package of guys that were gone. And, you know, the package that he had left had dwindled down to about just a small group of guys who really... great wrestlers, phenomenal talents, but they weren't with WCW for all these years, and, you know, mainstay kind of names and all that,
and you know what he says about WWE, it is so true that when you thought about WCW at that time, it was Hall and Nash, Hulk Hogan, the late Macho Man Randy Savage, Sting himself, Lex Luger, the Steiner Brothers, and they were not in like. They were not there anymore. And then when WWF bought out WCW, it was just like smaller, like other talents but they weren't with the company from the start. And that's what Sting mentions right here. And this is the reason why. And there's a key moment that Sting said, this is not my place here. Fuck that. And this is where he explains more.
Then I was watching what he was doing storyline wise when he'd have, you know, WCW against the WWF and the hostile takeover thing and that whole deal there. And I'll never forget Booker T, you know, making his first appearance on their show, and he came into the ring and he's making this big, huge fight, and the guys are flying all over the place, and then The Rock comes into the ring, and The Rock is hitting guys, the guys are flying all over the place, and then they come back to back, and then he turns around and they look at each other, and The Rock looks at Booker T and he says, "Who are you?" And, you know, that one little comment is all it took to just bury somebody, in my opinion, like, you know, Booker T. And, you know, let's let the world know that you're a WCW guy and you're a peon here. It was going to require lots of work for Booker T to try to come back. And he did, because he's a talented guy. And after all the years that I'd put into wrestling up to that point, it just seemed like a gamble to me. I didn't trust how I would be used.
And that is something, those words that Sting said are so fucking prophetic. Because, I don't know, like when Sting went to the WWE in late 2015, and he was just in that company with just a cup of coffee, because he said in many interviews that he wanted to do at least one WrestleMania in his lifetime, which he did. And that was, late 2014, because he fought his first and only WrestleMania, which was at WrestleMania 31, when he fought against Triple H. And I will talk about that some other time, because when I rewatched that match, the commentary that really fucking pissed me off, especially coming from Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler, and especially that fucking piece of shit bully named JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield, whatever that fucker's name. I never hated, never liked that guy, and because I know they were being fed by Vince McMahon on the headset, because we all know that Vince McMahon was saying all this fucking shit because he hated WCW with a passion, and because he wanted to do that, you know. But yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous on WCW's part. I mean, on WWE's part. But yeah, and like going back to the episode, Honky Tonk Man said that Brad Armstrong said that he didn't want people to see him because he wanted to just see if his name was on the list. to see if his contract was being renewed. He was just getting pages to stay home. And when Honky Tonk said that when he saw Brett Armstrong later on at a house show or an independent show, he says that they renewed his contract. I was like, what the fuck? That is unbelievable.
I can only imagine how much money went out.
Like, they got what?
ATM Eric. The inference was, well, Eric has access to Ted Turner's money. All he needs to do is
That's
write
not
a
true.
check. He can hire anybody he wants. Like I was an ATM machine.
I get to spend a billionaire's money.
I got a call from Harvey Schiller. Harvey said, Eric, I need you to come up to my office. Now, Harvey very rarely summoned me to his office. Essentially, Harvey brought me in to let me know that I had been under a forensic investigation for misuse of funds. And I thought, this can't be real. Presumably, somebody had met an executive from Time Warner and laid out this crazy story. Eric's just handing out $1 million contracts right and left. But this individual suggested that the reason I was doing that is because those wrestlers were giving me a kickback. So Harvey proceeded to tell me how this forensic investigation proved that none of that was true. They wanted to come clean, and also to let me know it was complete bullshit. That pissed me off. I didn't quit my job. I wish I would have. That was the moment that I quit being loyal to the company. Fuck them.
You can tell by the way he expressed himself that he was deeply hurt. He said, I'm not going to be more loyal to this fucking company. And it stinks, because I can't even imagine what he felt when they told him that. He just says, fuck this. He wish I knew that he left, but I didn't know that it was that bad. Because at that time, internet was not as big as it is in this era. And I was like, oh shit.
When I think back on my career, there's always be a little bitterness about that time period.
That's Bret Hart right here.
I had so many things left unfinished in my career, and things I wanted to do. And to watch what WCW did with me, it was sad. They're killing me off on purpose. And they did.
I've always known that sooner or later, I'd have to step in the ring with Bill Goldberg.
How do you fight Bill Goldberg? He's like a gorilla.
This is Starrcade 1999.
Slamming guys right through the mat, running them over like a car. I would pull them aside and say, I want to teach you how to actually not hurt guys. And when I walked out to the ring with Bill that night, and I remember I really looked him in the eye and said, don't hurt me out there. You need to trust me. And
that never came to fruition.
I really think Bill just saw me as another job guy, someone that was cannon fodder. If you're watching that match, Bill goes, watch the kick. And I'm like, watch the kick. And I don't understand what he's doing.
Oh. That was the mule kick that ended the career, right? You can tell Bill Goldberg just hit him with such force. And, I've always heard this lame excuse from Bill Goldberg that since he had a lot of strong heat with the late Scott Hall, he says that he imagined Scott Hall and just kicked him as hard as he could, Brett, and it's just because he imagined it was Scott Hall, which I think it was probably the lamest excuse of all time. And he just didn't took care of Brett, which was, to me, is fucked up. You can tell that Brett was laying on the canvas, holding his head on the side. Oh fuck, that hurt. You can tell that he was hurt.
He kicked me as hard as he could.
Ooh.
You could see me grab my neck. I was concussed.
You should protect yourself. You knew the kick was coming.
No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. Because you didn't give a shit, dude. You said, trust me. And Brett was just saying, don't hurt me. You fucking hurt him, dude. You're just a lot of people say that Brett's just a bitter guy. Okay, I would like to ask those people who say this. Okay, I would like to ask you, the people say, oh, Bret's just better. Okay, put yourself in Bret's place. How would you like it if some fucking dumbass who doesn't give a shit about wrestling, who doesn't know anything about wrestling, well, the other guy is just doing all this stuff because he's passionate about his job, and then some guy just kicks him like that, and then you won't be able to work anymore doing something you love? How would you like it, you know? Would you call him and say, get over it? Would you say that to Bret's face? No. And shut the fuck up if people will say that. And people will say, Bret's just, now that I'm older, now he's just being more honest, you know? He's just being, he just lets, because they asked him, people say that he should just get over it. That's something that Bret will never get over. It's very difficult, and I don't blame Bret for being that way, for being bitter. I wouldn't exactly say he's just pissed off. Bitter is just to me, it's just a very strong word. And this guy says you should have protected yourself. The fuck you know, dude. You were just another roided up, jacked up guy. I don't know about roid. I take it back to roids. He was just a jacked up guy who just went in there, just got a big push, got a big head about that.
Right? It was in the deal.
It was never talked about or explained to me. I do this move where I kick guys in the head as hard as I can.
Nobody deserves that. But it was a freaking accident. Complete accident.
No, Bill, that's not an accident. That's a career-ending injury, you idiot. I somehow will myself to stand up to be run over by this imbecile.
Oh, he hit him in the head there.
It was one of the saddest days of my life, and I knew my career was over.
He never aspired to do anything else other than be that guy, and I ended that for him. I've never been so remorseful, and I have been for years. But fuck, man, I can't do anything else.
Bill Goldberg was not qualified, but he's our star. They just look the other way. When you go through the type of brain injury that I went through, you're just grateful to be alive.
From the very, very first second that I got here, I got screwed over and screwed over and screwed over.
It was just such a lousy ending for such a...
I'm sorry, Bret. You know, you can't help but feel bad for Bret, you know. I feel, you can tell, like, it's just a sad way. I kind of feel for him, you know, when he called it quits in 2000, after he got fired from WCW in October 2000. It just sucked, in my opinion, but nothing they can do.
He claims to be the best.
It just shows that WCW never really appreciated or understood the talent that they had. They dropped the ball with me, and he knows it, and I know it, and fans know it. In the end, Eric Bischoff only can answer to himself.
By the summer of '99, I was toast. I was frustrated, angry, demoralized, lost hope. Once you lose that, it's pretty much over, and that's where I was at. I was pretty disrespectful, intentionally, because I always thought I had Ted's support in my back pocket. And I didn't know what was going on with Ted.
So in October of 1996, the Turner-Time Warner merger was finalized. And famously, Ted Turner was not receptive to the idea at first.
Big, huge company, a lot of money for Dad. They needed him and he needed them, but he deluded himself. He's losing more and more control. More control goes to the bureaucrats. More control goes to the executive types.
He couldn't protect Eric. He couldn't protect anybody at that point.
These fans love you. We want to see more of you.
That was the opportunity so many people within Turner Broadcasting wanted and now finally had. I was out of ammunition, out of everything.
Had the merger with Time Warner and Turner had not happened, I think it would have been a different story right now. What would happen with WCW in later years?
It was several years before I recognized just how much freedom I had and how unique of an opportunity I had. The freedom is what led to WCW being successful. The time I spent battling internally, it took the fun out of it for me.
If it wasn't for the NWO and moi, none of you people would be here tonight.
If I had to reflect back on that snapshot, summer of '99 may have been one of the worst periods of my life. all the way across the board. September 10th, 1999, I get up like any other morning. I'm on my way to work, and I get a phone call from Harvey. And Harvey said, Eric, you need to come to my office. I got to the CNN Center, went up to Harvey's office, and he said, Eric, you need to go home. I said, well, Harvey, I'll get home in a little while, but I've got a pay-per-view on Sunday.
The WCW Fall Brawl of 1999.
He said, not anymore. And that's when it dawned on me. And I'll be honest with you, it was a combination of confusion because it hadn't quite sunk in, and relief. I wasn't disappointed. I didn't fight it.
I was shocked. How many years head start had Vince had? And then he beat him for 83 straight weeks.
I did it!
Pretty impressive record.
What do you say about Eric Bischoff? It's what you call taking the bull by the horns.
What Eric did was impossible, in spite of the fact that everybody was against him. I don't know how he didn't blow his brains out. This has got to be the most terrible circumstances for anybody to work in.
You know, when Eric Bischoff said that they told him he needs to go home, I've been there. It sucks being fired because it's just like you're confused. Like you're showing up to work, and all of a sudden, one of the higher ups in your workplace, they tell you that you have been let go. It's like it is true. It's like a feeling of confusion and all that stuff. For me, it was confusion. When I got fired from my very first job, I felt like someone punched me in the stomach. Like I felt like a cold shiver down my spine, and I walked out of the office. Like, well, you ever heard of the feeling, the saying that you feel like my tail was in between my legs? Because that's what happened, you know, and it sucks because it sucks being fired. So in that aspect with Eric Bischoff, I don't blame him for being like fucked. It's fucked up, you know.
I pulled into the driveway.
He walks in the door, and I asked him,
what are you doing here? And I sat down at the kitchen table, and I said, I got fired.
I think he was a bit rattled.
She said, what are you going to do?
He got in his plane, threw his stuff in a bag and flew himself to Cody, Wyoming.
The next day, I was fishing right up the road from where I live right now.
It looks peaceful there.
The fishing was awesome, by the way. It was awesome that day.
I'll give Eric his props. At the end of the day, it was his idea for the NWO. He did push the Luchadors. He did push Goldberg.
Eric put the pieces of that puzzle together. And it wasn't his money and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. He knew what he was doing.
He did, actually.
The moves he made by getting Hogan, Savage, Nash, and the remake of Sting. There were so many good things he did.
Wait a minute. I didn't get involved in his world. I didn't know the intricacies of the soap opera. Eric knew that. In those years that we were crushing it, Eric delivered exactly what I asked him to deliver.
This is where the big boys play, huh? We ain't here to play.
Hollywood at the helm.
It's the NWO.
I mean, no matter what you think about Eric later down the road, he really was one of those people who worked his butt off. He worked hard and he stayed at it. And he was great to work with.
It is my honor and my privilege
on the
to
next
introduce you to the man, Vince Russo.
On the next Who Killed WCW?
All the storylines in WWE.
Now we've got them. We've got their genius.
He's using Jeff Jarrett's testicles for punching bags.
His thing was, let's get the audience that isn't watching wrestling.
It was lots of shock and awe.
He made it not advertiser friendly.
Eric's boys were not in tune with what Russo wanted.
And I've got plans for you, pal.
Vince Russo You're going to fucking hell just for that.
Those guys didn't want to give up their spots.
Yeah, because we earned our spot.
Is this an end of an era?
This is a television show. You want to go to a wrestling show, go to a house show.
I think we're deviating from the script. What the hell is going on?
That's going to go down as one of the most infamous moments in the history of television.
That's why this company's in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this.
All right, so that wraps up for this episode for Who Killed WCW Part 2, Episode 2. Alrighty, so in conclusion, the whole thing about WCW and being ended in terms of like, sorry if you hear like a cat, because my computer's next to my window and you can hear there's a cat in heat. I apologize for that. But in terms of what happened to Eric Bischoff, it sucks, but a lot of things fucked up there. In terms of what happened to Bret Hart, what happened to Bill Goldberg, a lot of things happened there. So like I don't know, like that's still not to say who killed WCW, but this episode right here was probably one of the most interesting ones because they were talking about how the NWO was on top of the world in 1997, 98, and that's when they were already feeling the wrath of WWF and Monday Night Raw, or Raw's War. And right now in the episode coming up right now, Vince Russo. A lot of people hate Vince Russo because of what he did. They're saying that he killed wrestling, and he even said that Bill Goldberg said you're going to go to hell. I have my issues with Vince Russo. A lot of people hate him because of they blame him for what happened to Owen Hart. Because I've spoken to a lot of people who say that he is the reason Owen Hart died. I don't know about that. I will say that in terms of what happened to Owen Hart, that is, yeah, it sucks what happened to him. But I don't know. I would not put the blame entirely on Vince Russo. You know. So, well, that about wraps up for this week's episode for Who Killed WCW Part 2. And next week I will be talking about Part 3. And I want to say thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all next week. Have a great evening.